welcome to RoboVoices. This is Miss Wong, and I am here with Ash, one of our middle school students. Hi, Ash. Welcome.
Hi.
It is wonderful to have you here. So Ash is here because she submitted a podcast to talk about accessibility for those in the school building with physical disabilities. And we're going to get to that as soon as we get through some of my quick get-to-know questions. So are you ready for those, Ash?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. First question, what's your favorite food?
Probably my grandma's mac and cheese.
That's great. What about favorite leisurely activity?
Either watching TV or playing video games.
Very nice. And favorite color?
Blue.
Nice. How about your favorite school subject?
My favorite school subject is theater.
Nice. And the final question is, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Probably getting my career going and just exiting college.
Nice. And what area of work do you see yourself doing?
Either theater or video and sound editing.
Which goes right along with some of the things that you enjoy doing. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing those things with us, Ash. So we're going to jump right in right now and talk about this. Ash, tell us, why did you pick this subject? Why was this important to you?
Well, I feel, considering how big the school is, there's so many students with many types of disabilities. So it's incredibly important to show that they have as much accessibility as possible and have the same experience as other students.
Absolutely. So what have you noticed are some of the challenges that students have in this large building?
So with a large building, there are a lot of different and separate floors, and a lot of the elevators are far and few between, and they tend to stop frequently. And with considering how many students we have that are in wheelchairs or crutches or need mobility aids, having, elevators far away from each other, far away from classes, can not only for students who have a hard time walking to one place or another cause pain or stress, or it can take a long time to get there, but also with the small amounts of elevators, it also can potentially cause delays in students with those disabilities getting to class in time.
Absolutely. So you've hit on a few things. You've hit on, number one, accessibility, like how many elevators we have in the building. But the other thing you mentioned was they don't always work too well, how they stop sometimes. And that, unfortunately, is because the building is rather old. Our custodial staff does a fantastic job keeping our space clean. And we've had to call repairs for the elevators multiple times. I'm sure you've seen them working on them. And I, too, would love to see them working consistently. And one of the things that would solve that issue is if we were renovated, right? If we were renovated as a school, we would certainly have brand new elevators, potentially more elevators. And again, that's unfortunately not something we control at Robinson, but that's part of FCPS. Like, is Robinson in the queue to get renovated, to get some newer, accessibility for students with disabilities? But you raise a good point. We want our students, all of our students, to have equal opportunity, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. What do you think are some good things that exist right now for students with disabilities?
So I find that there are a lot of programs that will include students with disabilities. Like the theater program is very accessible, and there are a lot of after-school activities where people with disabilities are able to participate.
Absolutely, and that's important for all of us here at Robinson. We want equitable practices for all students, for academics, as well as extracurriculars. And that's the one thing you mentioned, we want our students to feel welcome. We had an earlier podcast talking about the importance of after-school activities, and we want every student to feel that they can do it no matter what, right? No matter, even if they have some challenges, they shouldn't be prevented, right, from participating in these activities. So theater, you mentioned, there are plenty of ramps in the building. Yes, it might take them a little longer, but I also know that our students and staff really try to be understanding with situations like that. How do you feel about our students and staff regarding supporting those with disabilities?
So with staff, I feel as though that they're very supporting, but with students, there are certain areas in which they are less accessible regarding that, or are less open-minded when it comes to opening arms towards students with disabilities.
Sure. So how do we reach them? What are some of your thoughts regarding some of those pockets that may not be as understanding?
Just trying to like elevate the voices of those who are disabled, to have them to be able to share their stories and share what they go through on a daily basis, and how you as a peer can assist them and make their experience at school a lot better.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things is there's so much out there, right, to focus on. And there's maybe a lack of awareness of the needs of others. And I think what you're doing today, Ash, is exactly that. You are that voice for these students to basically say, hey, you know, this is something we all should be mindful of. We want to make sure everybody is kind and respectful to those who may not be able to access things as easily as some others, right? Is that what you're basically thinking?
Yeah, I also feel as though that there are certain aspects in school in which students who have physical disabilities are left out entirely. Like in my PE class, in the class next over to me, there's a boy who is in a wheelchair, and he's not able to participate in the class. And rather than creating possible accessible options or accessible games, they just have him sit there for the full hour, either reading books or just sitting there. And that makes me very sad, because I feel as though he should be able to, in some ways, be able to communicate and have fun with his peers, and rather than just having him sitting there.
So really to be more inclusive. So that's a specific example in a class. And the hope is, you know, maybe we can have some conversations with our PE teachers and maybe encourage that student to speak up, or maybe you seeing this might feel comfortable to say something. But certainly we want all of our students to feel comfortable. Was it a choice that the student chose not to do that? That's something for us to find out, right? Yeah. But we certainly want to include people in all activities. And we know that if there are certain disabilities, there are certain limitations,
yes.
Right? But the hope is we can provide some accommodations to allow them to meet the standards of the course or the curriculum, right? Just like everybody else.
Yes, of course.
That's a great example. Any other thoughts you have about this, Ash?
Another issue I also see is fire drills and potential issues with that. Because we have a bunch of hallways that are relatively narrow and so many students at once, I find that there are cases in which, you know, there's already so much pushing and shoving that happens in the hallways on a regular basis, let alone during fire drills and other places where all students need to exit for assemblies and other things. And I find that that is also not only a safety hazard, but is also incredibly, I feel as though, leaving out students with disabilities, because the only way to exit the school in a timely fashion on the tops and bottom floors are via stairs. And students with physical disabilities do not necessarily have access to that. And when there are many students exiting the school at once, there's not going to be as much time to be able to assist them with moving. So that is also a huge issue, creating ramps that lead outside of the outside to the building, and allowing students to be able to exit more safely, and creating more spaces where students can feel safe enough to exit.
Absolutely. Again, it's a space issue. You're talking about the building itself.
Yes.
And if I could make the halls wider with a magic wand, I would totally do that.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is a legitimate concern, which is why we have drills.
Yes.
Because we're trying to prepare ourselves. And just to reassure you, the students who are normally in a wheelchair or on crutches, you know, we are aware of those situations. So the staff definitely works to ensure that they are protected as much as possible. I also feel that we have a fantastic student body, and as you mentioned, the majority of our students are understanding and do provide the space needed, but those are legitimate concerns. And if it were a true emergency, I would reassure you that our staff would be extra cautious to ensure that those students would be taken care of as best as we can. But that, again, reminds us all why we have drills, right? We want to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing when it's not a real emergency, because when it really happens, we have to be even extra cautious of students who are on crutches, or students are visibly impaired students. We want to make sure that they get out safely, because we're thinking about all students who might not be able to access the stairs easily the way you and I can, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you've brought up some great points, Ash, and my hope is when your fellow students and staff hear this, they're just reminded of what's important out there, and to be empathetic and to be understanding of all of our RAMs here at Robinson.
Yeah, it's incredibly important to be empathetic towards those who are not as physically abled as we are.
Absolutely. They're able in so many ways. They can do anything. It's just a matter of maybe it takes a little longer, right, for them to achieve certain things because of the challenges. But no matter what, we can all have that same accessibility. It just looks a little different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Right. Ash, any other thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I don't think so.
It has been a pleasure to get to know you, Ash. Thank you for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you in the halls in the future.
Thank you.
All right, Robinson, we hope everyone has a great day.